Friends, welcome. You are all aware knowledge prospers all, and let's learn something new. In a series of misconducts, today we are going to see, friends, workplace abuse. Now, you see, since abuse is an oral form of an insult, there cannot be any documentary proof ever available. Many a times people insist for documentary proof. And moreover, workmen who indulge into this sort of a misconduct take advantage of that. How can there be a documentary proof of something which has happened in a flash of a second or which has happened in a spur of the moment? There cannot be a documentary proof. The words say use of filthy language, different, many a times. This filthy language is again a very funny thing. Some words have different connotations and meanings in different languages. It might have a plain meaning in one language and it could be an innuendo in another language. That is, it could have a different or a couched meaning into some other language. Here we have to see as to what languages both the people understand. The manager has a different mother tongue and this person has a different mother tongue. You have to understand where is the abuse lying. And the words say use of filthy language, different meaning in different dictionary. And then in reality, it's a browbeating technique. Many a times you scare the other person. Sometimes language is not a real barrier. From his tone, from his gestures, from his eyes, you can make out that yes, he is abusing you, though the manager may not be knowing his language. Now, what is the word abuse? The word abuse means to use the word in any word in a perverted manner or which causes tension or a loss of a spirited energy. Anything could be. There cannot be a real definition of the word abuse. And then, well, you are all aware, you stay in the same India in which I do. People invoke some relatives also into such abusive verbal processes. Union leaders, sometimes it's an accusation. Of course, I'm not going to paint everybody with the same brush. Some union leaders are prone to using abusive language. Now, this disturbs the workplace atmosphere also. Sometimes workers use abusive language against their superiors who have to undergo humiliations and insult. Sometimes even that has taken an ugly turn, and managements have also stressed upon those managers to condone even serious misconducts. This sets a bad example. And then you see, friends, unions look at such behavior as a macho type or an instance of courage or militancy. Well, yes, he is the worker who really had the courage to bell the cat. You know, he said such and such a thing to this managing director, and then they could do nothing. So, this is a macho type of a behavior, a courageous behavior, say a militant behavior. The worker has really become belligerent, and this belligerency is rewarded by the unions that yes, they look at him as an idol. But what has he done in reality? He has abused the managing director, which cannot be tolerated. Sometimes complaints even reach the police stations, and then it is normally in vain, let me tell you, because the police don't help the aggrieved and the offense is, unless the offense is a cognizable one. So suppose if you go to the police station do not take your case. Then what does the company do? Company goes to the court of law and files a private criminal complaint. And when a private criminal complaint is filed, do you think it's a magic wand that tomorrow morning you get the decision or the verdict in your favor or whatever? No. Then the next date, then adjournment, and then it takes donkey's years for the case to get solved. In the meantime, it already has a demoralizing effect, especially when the criminals go scot free. If a case is to take 5 and 7 years in the criminal court of law for all sorts of abuse, and then there is some truth in the abuse, it really has a demoralizing effect on the company also, as well as on the managers also. And after 7 years, who remembers memory? You have to just stress your memory, and then you have to understand what really happened. Human memory fades away in quick time. So what happens later, nobody knows. And after 7 years, you expect what happened in the meantime. There have been 2 or 3 agreements which the company has entered into that union with all those. So what it happens is, in real words, friends, we see that the criminals go scot free. However, is very important. However, using abusive language and its use in a contemptuous form, ultimately what are you doing? You are abusing your manager. In fact, the ethics of the company should be that managers should be respected, and there are no two. There's no mincing of words as far as this thing is concerned. It's as broad as daylight. Managers and authority will have to be respected. Otherwise, there is indiscipline. And as I just now told you, no company can prosper with indiscipline. Then, for friends, using abusive language in a contemptuous form, or it can be an oral attack, or even it may tantamount to insubordination too. And that's what I told you, that this misconduct can be fitted in insubordination, and it can also be fitted in an act subversive of discipline. Now you see, the Bombay High Court in one of its judgment has enumerated some instances. First is if the conduct is prejudicial to the master or to his reputation. Of course, this may not be an exact abuse, but when will the master be intimidated to take some action against the worker? If the conduct is inconsistent with the peaceful discharge of the duty of the master, or the servant makes it difficult or unsafe for the master to retain him in service. You have an abusive servant, day in and day out he is doing something. Would it be safe for you to keep him in service? And if that is so grossly immoral, so what the worker does is so grossly immoral that he cannot be trusted also, can you keep him in service? Of course, it may not exactly fit in the word abuse, remember. But then, these are examples when the worker cannot be tolerated. Yeah. Now friends, sometimes the master cannot rely on the faithfulness of the servant also. Sometimes if the servant is abusive, or he disturbs the peace of the place of the employment, then it is very difficult for the company or the management to keep such a worker. Or sometimes he insult in such an inordinate degree that it becomes very incompatible with the continuance of the master and servant relationship itself. Sometimes one abuse is enough for a person to remember this worker for the rest of his life, for the manager. And then he presses upon the management, either I will stay or he will stay. There have been such instances in so many companies. And the managements also have to understand that such things cannot be taken up very leniently, because you are doing so at the cost of discipline. Now, if such an act of a servant tends to cause some serious consequences, well, those consequences have to be addressed. And the answer is very simple, that no abusive behavior or no verbal, physical, whatever sort of an abuse will ever be tolerated. Now you see friends, Justice Lopes, in a very famous case, that is Foster, Years versus Foster, that is the name of the case, wherein he held that if a servant's conducts himself in such a way which is inconsistent with the faithful discharge of his duty, then it is certainly going to justify a dismissal. So what is the nature of his duty? If his conduct justifies that, yes, that he is conducting himself in a way which is inconsistent with his job, you are here to be mannerly. Workmen are supposed to be ethical, mannerly, whatever. But at least, civility should be there. How you talk with your senior, how you respect him. Any sort of a disrespect to the senior will not be tolerated by the companies and ought not to be tolerated also, friends. Then I'll tell you one more thing which has, added fuel to the fire is voice modulation. Voice modulation, let me tell you, 90% of the misunderstandings on earth have arisen because of a different tone or a wrong tone. So voice modulation of each person in the society differs. The tone, the abuse, I can just modulate my voice and the same thing can be conveyed in a different manner. Okay, so the voice, have you seen villains? Sometimes they speak very sweet, sometimes he raises his voice, sometimes he comes in a lower pitch. But then the voice modulation, you can feel the intimidatory element in him. He may be speaking sweet, but that is also very scary. We have seen it in so many movies. Then friends, any discreet, improper or abusive language may also show lack of culture. Many a times, managers even question his work, his education and his culture. Is this what you have been taught? Because no person with a self-respect will ever tolerate any abusive language. Now see friends, use of such a language on one occasion without any other connected behavior cannot sometimes warrant a dismissal. I told you, to what is the punishment, we have to also understand it should not be a disproportionate punishment. So time, place, circumstance, what is the abuse, what is the strata, what is the culture, everything will have to be seen. Then friend, freedom of speech and expression, many a times the defenses are, yes, this is freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression, which is contained in Article 19(1)(a) of Part 3 of the Constitution, which is a fundamental right, cannot be so stretched to include abusive language. No, that is not freedom of speech and expression. Then friends, what are the defenses? Somebody is accused that your behavior is very abusive or your verbal conduct is abusive. The defense is, first is the defense is that the workman was outraged. Unions take up this defense that yes, he comes from such a strata of society. Mental well-being on that day was not proper. He fought with his wife, and that's why there was already a rage in him, and the workman got outraged. This cannot be tolerated. Anybody can get outraged. You should know how to control yourself. I did not abuse. That's a total denial. Is the next defense. Ask any workman around me. Did I abuse him? And then, as I told you, there is no documentation to it. And all the other workmen, they are on the side of this workman who is their comrade, and then they say, yes, yes, we are there, we were present, he did not utter this sort of a thing. Then why is the manager making a complaint against you? And then who is to be believed in the situation? Third is, what is seen in the CCTV is not an abuse, because what is seen in the CCTV is only a lip movement. I'm not abusing him. Sometimes that is also brought into picture. That yes, you see the CCTV and what you see are only lip movements. But then they say that no, that was not the abuse. I'm not abusing him. And lip movements do not conform to that. If the voice is recorded, come on. If the voice is recorded, then it brings so many things. Whether there is a certificate under Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act 1872, how do you prove a person's voice? See, it goes to the root of the matter. It's not that a simple thing. And what has really happened is just a abuse. It's not just a abuse. It is an abuse which has spoiled the discipline of the industry. And then instances of the abuse, as I told you, there are so many instances. Bad words, he comes from this strata of society. The word appears bad to me, but it is not as bad as that because they use it every day in that society. And then how do I know his society? And as I told you, my vocabulary as far as bad words is concerned is limited. So friends, I cannot give you more examples. Then some cases, friends, we are going to see. Workmen of Bharat Freights Werner Private Limited versus Bharat Freights Werner Company. The abusive conduct of the worker towards the lady MD warranted dismissal. Court said that first she is a lady, you should know how to behave with a lady. And if at all you are going to be abusive, then yes, answer in law is dismissal. He will be dismissed from his service. Well friends, the next case is Mahindra and Mahindra versus Naravde, wherein the Honorable Supreme Court held that the language used by the workman is so filthy which cannot be tolerated in any civilized society. And here we have to think twice before invoking any sort of a sympathy. Sympathy in all such cases is misplaced, and this would warrant a dismissal. So just see, using abusive language in the heat of the moment, well, that could entail, it would cost the workman his job. And in another case, friends, that is South Indian Bank versus Krishna Kumar, wherein the Kerala High Court held that the habitual use of abusive language, despite giving opportunities to improve and mend his ways, and the workman has never improved, now it would entail a dismissal. The Honorable Kerala High Court was very clear in its approach that yes, opportunities have been given to improve. What is the opportunity for that you have to improve? And if at all you are not to do that, then the answer is very simple, that there is going to be a dismissal. Then in management of Glendale State Nilgiris versus Labour Court, threatening a factory manager will invite a removal from service. You are here to do a dadagiri or you are here to work. Be clear about it. And if at all you are going to use some extrajudicial measures to threaten your manager, abuse him, your way is out. You will be removed from your service, is what is the mandate of the judgment. And then MC Gupta versus Labour Court Meerut, wherein the Honorable Allahabad High Court said that abusive language toward the superior is a good ground for dismissal. Enough of it. If you abuse your superiors, that's a good ground for dismissal. So, friends, we have seen as to what is this abuse. And then in our journey of imparting knowledge, sharing knowledge, you and me both are students. And yes, we enjoy the journey of sharing knowledge. Yes, thank you so much, friends. Thank you.